has written a book called Such Unfortunates. And tell us how you got into this business, Andrew.
Well, I started tragically. I had a very difficult childhood. I suffered from, and I grew up in a family that was very abusive, emotionally, physically, and sexually. And that led to me having a host of problems in my life. I developed anxiety at a very young age and panic attacks by I think age 14. I had taken myself to the emergency room about 20 times, believing I was dying of a heart attack.
Mm.
So I had severe panic disorder. And the doctor's solution was to give me Xanax. So at 14 years old, I started taking twice the adult dose of Xanax. I also suffered from depression. I truly believe when a child isn't raised without love and in an abusive family, their brains don't grow the same way as a normal child would. And so they produce less amounts of dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, all the normal chemicals that a person needs throughout their day to feel good, to feel motivated, to feel love for another person, to feel sympathy. All those emotions, when you've been abused and suffered such abuse, you don't feel those the same way other people do. Whereas other people were getting up excited for their careers and their futures, I was just trying to survive through the next day without the least amount of pain possible.
Yeah.
And so and by doing that, my solution became taking things that would change the way I felt about me inside of myself. And that started with Xanax, then went to alcohol, marijuana. In high school, I became an alcoholic, basically. I would drink. The Xanax worked part-time in the short term, but it wasn't a solution. No one looked at why I had the panic attacks. It was just like, let's treat the panic attack. And here's a drug to treat it, and you just take the drug. But what was happening is I became addicted to that drug. After a month on it, my body became physically addicted, where I couldn't stop it or I'd have physical withdrawals. And I got something called rebound anxiety, which was 10 times worse. And so that led me into a whole host of problems in life. And I dealt with bullying also as a young child, because I didn't know how to set boundaries with people, because I didn't have those limitations in my own family. So when I was young, I dealt with kids that were bullies, and I was the victim of it for a while. And so that's another part that I speak on in the book, but something that's near and dear to my heart, that I feel for kids these days that are going through that. So it's another thing I wanted to address in the book. But as you were saying, that what led me into where I got to write this book was basically through everything that I had gone through. I ended up starting with the pills and the alcohol and ended up on heroin, homeless on the streets of Camden, New Jersey. So that's where the beginning point was 14-year-old to when I was in my 20s, I became a needle using heroin addict, down and out, homeless on the street. So it progressed to that point. Yeah.
And you really came back from all that.
I did. Yes. And that's the message I wanted to give people with my book. I wanted people to see that if someone like me could do it, anybody could do this. And I really believe that. And I wanted people to, when I would go to treatment centers, they were just treating the drugs. Okay, the drugs, we need to remove the drugs and detox. But they weren't looking at why was the person using it in the first place.
Right.
And that is really what you need to solve. If you get the drugs away, the person, great, they're clean, they'll leave the rehab, they look clean. But if they still have that underlying reason is still there, why they used in the first place, it's only going to be a matter of time before being around it or having old friends or old places is going to get to them, and they're going to go back to them. Right. And so when I finally got clean, it took me a while. I'd failed multiple times. And when I finally did get this, I had some people I consider angels that came into my life that really were amazing. But so many people would say to me, how did you get it? And my son didn't. I had a woman who I was friends with her son and he died. And she wanted to know how I was able to get clean and he wasn't. And when I talked to her, she was like, you know what? Your words have, what you've said to me has helped me more than anything throughout all these years. She said, you should write a book. You could help so many other families of people that are either suffering with addiction or have gone through it and want answers, have one that someone that died. And so that kind of motivated me too, to want to write this stuff.
Yeah. Wow. And so did you do AA or what?
I did, and I believe that can be beneficial. That's where the title comes from, but I don't believe it's the only way of healing. I think there's this idea out there that if someone can't get AA, that they're a lost cause, and that's just complete nonsense.
Right.
Uh, it really is. AA is great. If that works for you, go for it, do it. I've seen it help people, but I've also seen people who just cannot relate that. It's just not the way. And there are other programs or other things they can do to beat this. And it is not, if AA doesn't work for you, it's not the end of the road. You don't have to give up. There are other ways out. That's one of my goals, is to start a foundation. I want to start my own rehab, and I want to use, among the things, one of the things is animal therapy. I believe animals have such, I've seen it. I've seen
Yeah.
an addict been lost, and addiction is such a selfish disease that you just think of yourself, that when you have to take care of an animal, you really have to be selfless. And it's sort of, I've seen people that were in addiction and they'll get a pet and the love that pet offers, and it really helps people out. And that's one of the alternative therapies that I want to use in my rehab that I plan to start. So,
Cool.
yeah,
That sounds like it would work.
I
Be a
love
good
animals.
thing.
Yeah.
How, show us your book.
Yep, here it is right here. Such Unfortunates. Can we see it
Uh-huh.
right there? There's the
Okay. And where
title.
can they get the book?
You get the book on Amazon. If you go online, Amazon.com, it's available paperback like this. It's also available on ebook or Kindle. You don't have to have a Kindle to get it. If you have a computer, you can get it on Amazon and read it right away. It doesn't have to have a Kindle. You can just download it and read it right away. Or
Right.
it's available in Audible, which you can listen to it as well.
Oh, nice. I
Yes.
love
So a lot
Audible
of people like
books.
that.
Did
Yes.
you do the Audible version or did you have someone do it?
I had someone do it. I
Oh,
wanted to do it, to read it myself, but the recording equipment, he had a much better studio, and it
yeah.
just, getting that, it just sounded so much better. I started and I was like, you know what, I'll let him do it,
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
I,
nice. That's
maybe a
great.
second book.
Do you
Yeah,
have a website where people can
I
get it?
do. Yeah, two of them actually. I have suchunfortunates.com. So it's just the name of the book.com. And I also have Facebook at Amazing New Book. And that's my Facebook page about the book. So if you go to Facebook, it's Amazing New Book, and that'll bring you to my page. You can write to me on both of those. I'm always hearing from people on Facebook that are asking me things about the book and things about their loved ones, and I will always get back to people if they need help or if they have suggestions, even if they're going through it themselves or they think somebody might. A lot of people are worried about their partners. I've had a lot of wives reach out to me saying, we don't know what to do. Is this person's doing this? And and I'm happy to answer as best as you can. I can only give you my experience. I'm not a professional, but I will give you my experience. Like, I'm not a doctor. I can't give you medical advice, but I'll tell you what worked for me. So,
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
sure. Great. Absolutely. My pleasure. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.